MD Abdul Jalil, born in July 1952, back when Bangladesh was East Pakistan, crowds of Bangladeshis fight in the streets for liberation against Pakistan. Jalil, one of the countless freedom fighters, was willing to dedicate his life to his country's cause and fight till its independence. MD Abdul Jalil grew up with his mother, Jaba Khatun, father, Osimuddin Pramanik, and his six brothers and four sisters from a middle-class family, Jalil being the oldest sibling of all. Jalil and his family are from Bogora and lived in village Jahanbanda. Jalil's father was a rice farmer who sold crops and his mother was a housewife. Jalil's mother dropped out of school early and did not know how to read and write. This was the case for most women back then in Bangladesh. He started school at around 7 years old and completed his elementary education in a Bogora Zilla school, which was a very small building with 3 teachers. Jalil and his classmates sat on one small bench for school. Back then in Bangladesh, there were not many schools around the village, and in general, Jalil was educated in a moderate amount of English and learned to read and write Bengali. Jalil grew up in a time where resources were scarce. Unlike today, where modern technology is abundant, Jalil's family had different ways of using what they had in order to make a living and sustain his family. Jalil's family's main food source consisted of rice, meat, fish, and different types of fruit and vegetables. Jalil's father owned a rice field where they cultivated rice to sell and use in their own meals. Jalil's father also had a farm, as most families in Bangladeshi villages did, and there were cows, chickens, and a few other animals. These cows were used for milk, protein, or to be sold for money once the cows matured. The main methods of transportation in Bogora are boats and rickshaws. A rickshaw is a three-wheeled carriage that is rigged onto a bicycle. Only 5% of Bangladesh's roads are paved, meaning that a solid percentage of the population use rickshaws to get around.
এটি হচ্ছে মাটি এবং সিমেন্ট দিয়ে তৈরি একটি স্টোভ অর্থাৎ চুলা। এই চুলাটিতে বেসিক্যালি প্রচুর পরিমাণে আগুন তৈরি হয়, ফায়ার মানে জ্বালানি তৈরি আগুন তৈরি হয় এবং রান্না খুবই সহজে রান্না করা যায়। এখানে জ্বালানি হিসেবে ব্যবহৃত হচ্ছে পাটখড়ি অর্থাৎ জুট স্ট্র। আর নিচে যে অংশটি আছে ওটা হচ্ছে ফাউন্ডেশন, মাটি দিয়ে ফাউন্ডেশন তৈরি। তার উপরে যে অংশটি এটি হচ্ছে স্টোভটি, এটি হচ্ছে প্রথমে সিমেন্ট দিয়ে তৈরি এবং তার উপরে মাটি দিয়ে প্রলেপ দেওয়া হয়েছে। এবং বাংলাদেশের গ্রাম এলাকায় সিংহভাগ মানুষ এরকম চুলা তৈরি করে বাড়ির বাইরে বা বাড়ির ভিতরে রান্না করে থাকে এবং জ্বালানি হিসেবে খড়ি অথবা পাটখড়ি ব্যবহার করে থাকে। অনেকেই পাতাও ব্যবহার করে এবং রান্না অনেক সুস্বাদু হয়। এই চুলা দিয়ে তৈরি খড়ি দিয়ে তৈরি রান্না অনেক সুস্বাদু হয়। এটি হচ্ছে টিউব ওয়েল, বাংলায় নলকূপ বলা হয়ে থাকে। এটির গভীরতা হচ্ছে 65 ফিট। এটির কম বেশি হয়, কখনো বেশি লাগে বা কোথাও কমও লাগে। এটি মানুষ হাত দিয়ে বোরিং করে পাইপগুলো ভিতরে ঢুকানো হয়, নিচের এই পাইপগুলো, এবং আশপাশটি পাকা করা হয়েছে এবং অল্প চাপে পানিটির হ্যান্ডেল আছে, অল্প চাপে পানি বের হয় এবং পানি এটি হচ্ছে ড্রিঙ্কিং ওয়াটার এবং পানি খুবই সুমিষ্ট। বাংলাদেশের গ্রাম এলাকায় সিংহভাগ মানুষই এটি হচ্ছে পানি পাওয়ার হলো উৎস। এটি দিয়ে গোসল করা হয়, এটি দিয়ে খাবার, থালা বাসন পরিষ্কার, রান্না এবং সব কিছুই করা হয় এবং এই পানি অত্যন্ত সুস্বাদু।
MD Abdul Jalil became a freedom fighter at the age of 18. He fought in Dhaka in the 9-month period of the war. Before he entered the war, he began training for 3 months to be an army soldier on November 26, 1969, at a training center called STC Kohart, located in a Pakistani district. But after this 3-month period, there were multiple protests and riots going on in East Pakistan, so he was given a 2-month break and he went back to East Pakistan. Like most Bangladeshis, Jalil was not content with the segregation that East Pakistan faced from West Pakistan. Bangladesh's resolve to be liberated was also motivated by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's words, the leader of the Bangladesh freedom fighters. Due to this, he volunteered to be a freedom fighter on March 26, 1971. When Jalil set out to be a freedom fighter in Dhaka to defeat the Pakistani army, his family was worried sick about him and his mother cried a lot. Back then, there was no way of communicating, so there was no way of knowing whether he was safe or not. There was also no way of visiting because they could not use trains during the times of war. Jalil's mother thought he had definitely died during the war. Well, Jalil has survived this war. During the period of wartime, it was just duty all day and night for him. In the day, he stayed inside, while most of his time doing duty was in the night. Jalil and his party's job was to make sure no one came to attack from the east of Dhaka.
বাংলাদেশি মানুষ যথেষ্ট অতিথি পরায়ণ। তারা যুদ্ধকালীন সময়ে আমাদের থাকা খাওয়া এবং বাসস্থানের ব্যবস্থা করে দিয়েছিল।
Jalil returned to Bogora in 1972 after the war ended. Up to 3 million Bangladeshi people were killed, and about 30 million civilians were internally displaced. His family welcomed him with a lot of food and love after he returned to Bogora. People that known he was a freedom fighter respected him more, and the people that did misdeeds feared him. Jalil's family's house and land was unfortunately destroyed during the war. He and his family moved to a village called Lohuni in Rangpur, where he had already had some land. Today, this is currently what Jalil's house looks like in Bangladesh. After the war, Jalil also earned many certificates. He still makes an income today for being a freedom fighter. Bangladesh was swiftly recovering from the economic and social damage of the war. Jalil says people worked together and supported each other to help their country recover. About a year after the war, Jalil got married to my grandmother, Belawara Begum. As his family believed she was a good match, he moved to Rangpur because he and his 3 brothers had a job there. After the war ended, his success would only continue because of his substantial experience. Jalil would move on to work at many places around Bangladesh. Jalil worked as an army wireless operator in Rangpur until 1976. Next, he worked in Niringbling Housing Society in Dhaka. From 1980 to 1981, he worked at a jute mill, also in Dhaka. Lastly, from 1980 to 2010, he worked at the Bangladesh Power Development Board in various places around Bangladesh. That concludes the story of how Abdul Jalil lived majority of his life, marked by a significant turning point which changed the course of his life, making it better.